Before I focus on what feminism is or what feminisms are, we will look at the condition of women worldwide before 20th century. Women had no right to vote. She was considered inferior, unintelligent, and irrational, therefore unfit for any public office. She had no right to education and no right to property. And due to these reasons I have mentioned, she was discriminated, oppressed, and subordinated. She lived her life as a slave in the family. Even though women in the many parts of the world still live similar type of life, yet we must say there is quite an improvement in the living condition of women worldwide due to feminism. Feminism emerged as a social movement to address this discrimination, oppression, and subordination of sexes, first in USA, later in other parts of the world. So a feminist is one who works for the upliftment and equality of sexes in the society. Now let's have a look at some definitions. The first definition is it is a belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. The philosophy of feminism lies in the equality of the sexes, men and women, and according to it, they should be considered equal not only in the family, they should be given equal labor rights, and of course, they must have equal right to choose their representative in government. Second definition has been given by Bell Hooks, who says it is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. You must have seen how women are often subjected to abusive behavior by men, and this abusive behavior or discriminatory behavior is called sexism, and feminism tend to end this, or at least address this. Third definition is a bit broader than the first two. It includes all those movements that aim to define, establish, and achieve the political, economic, personal, and social equality of sexes. In order to fully appreciate feminism, we need to look at the history of feminism, which is categorized in three waves. The first wave, late 18th century to 1920s, second wave from 1960s to 1990s, and third wave from 1990s to present time. First wave emerged in direct response to social changes due to industrialization and spread of ideas of liberty in the USA. See, on one hand, there were public discussions on individual rights. On the other hand, women were given no right as citizens. During the mid 19th century, many women participated in anti slavery movements, but when they were not allowed to speak, women organized first ever women's right convention, which is famously known as the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention. It was held in 1848. Even though these delegates demanded a number of rights for women, such as right to education, right to property, etc., but they decided on to fight for the voting rights for women on priority basis. This movement was liberalist in approach, as they believed that only by securing political and legal rights women can be seen equal to men in society. These feminists, or I must say this wave, sought to bring amendments in the national policy of USA. And many writers like Mary Wollstonecraft, Stuart Mill gave a boost to the movement. Mary Wollstonecraft's book, A Vindication of Rights of Women, which was written in 1892, became an inspiration for the feminists to fight for the rights. And in 1920, USA gave voting rights to its women and also offered limited opportunities to women in public offices. But that was not enough. Women were still discriminated and oppressed. Second wave of feminism was initially liberalist in approach, but later on it became more and more liberal, more and more radical. Rights that were achieved during the first wave were very limited and offered only limited opportunities. Women continued to be discriminated at workplaces and education institutions. Betty Friedman, in her book Feminine Mystique, argued that existence of women is limited to domestic life only, and majority of women are oppressed within the four walls of their houses. Women have no independence existence in the family, and therefore more opportunities should be opened for women in public spaces. With this second wave began to focus on oppression rather than equality. Issues of reproduction rights and abortion began to be raised. They found that the cause of oppression is actually the objectification of women, that women are considered only as sexual objects. And if women want personal freedom, they need to get a liberation from these oppressive conditions of life. Sulamit Firestone, in her Dialectic of Sex, looked at reproductive function and social role of mothering as oppressive and suggested that women should prefer test tube babies to liberate themselves. So see, that's why second wave feminists are most of them are radicals in their approach. Another important feature of second wave feminism was that it increasingly became theoretical in its approach. Peter Betty writes, the feminist literary criticism of today is direct product of women's movement in of 1960s. They started exploring and analyzing the characterization of women in literature written by men. Their aim was to expose how men have presented women only as cultural stereotypes and sexual objects in literature. The major theoretical achievement of the second wave feminist was to discover that women suffer not only because of biological differences but due to gender also. And here Simon de Beauvoir says one is not born but rather becomes woman, and this is very relevant. Radical feminists called gender as a major cause of oppression in social, political, and economic spheres and focused to expose it as a social construct because it is through learning social roles, behaviors that society consider appropriate for girls that girls acquire gender. During 1970s, feminists started drawing from approaches of other types of criticism like Marxism and psychoanalysis, etc. A number of feminists turned to psychoanalysis. Kate Millett in Sexual Politics in 1969 condemns Freud as primary source of patriarchal attitudes against which feminists must fight. Some feminists defended Freud and some advocated for differences by exploring female subjectivity, female mode of writing. They tend to restructure experience of early childhood and family relation. Psychoanalytical feminists contended that psyche is a social product. It is a result of formative influences in early childhood. These feminists, instead of advocating equality, were more interested in exploring differences between men and women and also implication of these differences. Black feminism gained momentum in late 1980s when they started protesting against the dominance of the white woman and argued that the woman in women's movement is essentially white women of the West. And these white women of the West do not cannot address the problem of the women of color. And perhaps that's why today we have so many feminisms instead of one unified feminism. The major finding of the third wave of uh, feminism is that women are oppressed not only on the basis of gender. There is more to it. Even more factors are involved, such as caste, class, ethnicity, race, etc. Third wave began in 1980s to present time. It is a highly postmodern approach. These feminists embraced the theories of Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Jacques Lacan to develop an approach to contest woman as universal category, which means worldwide women experience of inequality, oppression and subordination vary culture to culture and also from one historical time to another historical time. They looked at how historically and culturally women have been disprivileged as the other. They looked at binary not only as hierarchical but gendered also. Therefore, these feminists encouraged to develop own tools of analysis based on women's subjectivity and experience. In this regard, the works of Luz Irigaray, Julia Kristeva, and Elaine Sixu are worth mentioning. So that's all about feminism in a nutshell. Thank you so much.